Hi guys and welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to look into today is the disappearance of a teenage boy. It happened in 1979 and we still have no idea what happened to him. It remains unsolved to this day, unfortunately. It is the missing persons case of Martin Allen. Martin Allen was born on the 19th of October in 1964 in Islington, London, England. He lived with his brothers on like a council estate in Hornsley. His mother worked as a secretary whilst the children were growing up, and when Martin reached the age of 12, his father actually got a new job, and that would mean that they would have to uproot their entire family and go and move to basically a different lifestyle. They would now be living a very different lifestyle to what they were used to. He got a job as the chauffeur to the Australian High Commissioner, and in doing so and getting that job, it gave them access. They lived in that area too, so that he was always there and readily available. So they would move from their flat in Hornsley to this cottage on the grounds of this property in Kensington. Obviously they spent many years living in the area that they did live in, and now they were moving to this quite a wealthy area where you would have celebrities, politicians, so it was just completely different to what they were used to. Martin was a very intelligent boy and he ended up going to Central Foundation Grammar School. He was like really good at drawing, really good at maths and French, and he made friends in his new school. He adjusted to it really well, although he was a homeboy. He did prefer to stay at home a lot and obviously be around his family, but he just seemed to settle into the school life and things like really well and adapted very quickly to their new life. Then on the 5th of November in 1979 is when obviously everything eventually went wrong. He was 15 years old and he was on his way home from school, taking the London Underground, and he decided that on his way home he would go to his brother's house. But his plan was to basically go home first, to go and grab some money and then go and see his brother Bob. And obviously Bob didn't live in the cottage that the family lived in. He had his own house somewhere near a place called Holloway Road. And Martin just wanted to go and see his brother, so, you know, he was going to call him. He left his friends at 3:50 p.m. at King Cross Station, where he would then head home, and one of his older brothers, Kevin, actually confirmed that he did make it home, but he basically nipped in, grabbed some money, and then just went straight back out again. So you'd be thinking that he's on his way to Bob's right now, but unfortunately he never made it to Bob's house, and in fact he was never seen again. Martin didn't come back from Bob's house that night. His parents assumed he was at Bob's. Obviously, you know, that was his plan, and why would they think otherwise? So they thought he was at Bob's, and when he didn't come home that night, they weren't too worried because, you know, they figured he's probably stayed the night at his brother's. You know, it was a normal thing to do, and so they weren't worried. But then the next day, when he still hadn't come home, and basically pretty much most of the day passed, and then at 7 p.m, his mother decided to ring Bob to see if he was still there, see what his plans were, you know, was he planning on coming home at some point, because she was wondering where he was. And then Bob told her that Martin had never arrived. Bob didn't think much of it. He thought that Martin had just changed his mind and decided not to go. And so his mother's thinking that he's at Bob's, and Bob's thinking that he's at home, and nobody knew where he was. She decided to ring around his friends, see whether anyone knew where he was. You know, maybe he stayed at friends instead, maybe he was chilling out with them, and not one of them knew where he was either. Everyone was panicking. They were ringing around all these different people trying to find out where he was. And then they decided that they needed to contact the police and report Martin as missing. And soon enough, an investigation was underway. Everyone was out looking for Martin wherever they could. Friends, family, volunteers, police. It was being shared all over the media, like massive wide-scale searches were being done. And they looked for days, weeks, and they just couldn't find anything. Despite the best efforts, despite these huge search efforts that they did, they just didn't find anything. Then 5 weeks passed by, no one's heard or seen of Martin whatsoever, and this witness came forward to say that they possibly had seen him with this older man. They said that they were at Gloucester Road tube station at around 4:15, and they see this man with a boy. And the reason that this person kind of took note of it was that they looked odd. They looked suspicious, like they were acting suspicious, like there was something not right about them, and that obviously made people worried that this was Martin. They said that this boy looked like Martin. This man had his arm around his shoulder, and they both looked really nervous. Especially the boy, he was, very distressed looking. He said that he saw the man kind of poke the boy in the back as if, like, pay attention, and then said to him, do not run. Which is obviously a very strange thing to say. Why would you say that to, I don't know, say your son or something like that? It's more like somebody who has taken somebody without them, obviously without their permission, and that they were strangers, and he's telling this boy that he's just kidnapped. Maybe. Obviously, it's just speculation, but why would you say that otherwise? Like, seriously. The police asked the man for a description, and he said he's around 6 foot tall and in his 30s, well built, and the man had blonde hair and a moustache. Police did that sketch of him and the boy to try and just raise awareness and get it out there and see whether anyone knew anything else. Again, they did everything they could to try and find Martin. There's no actual confirmation that this was Martin, but, it's around the same time that he went missing, around the same area. It looks like Martin, and it's around the same age, and then he's telling him not to run, and they both look nervous. It could very well be coincidental, don't get me wrong, but, there's a lot of things that just seem to fit to say that possibly it was Martin, but again, we just don't know. Again, they carried on with trying to find this man and trying to find Martin. They did what was described one of the biggest house-to-house searches. They felt like this was the only way to try and, try and find out some information. They literally went from door to door on so many houses. It was kind of insane. Not long after that, they compiled a list of 200 suspects. They had spoke to 50,000 people and had around 600 statements, which just goes to show how focused and how invested they were on this search. They just give it their all. And just the scale of the door-to-door inquiry that they actually did. They did a search on Martin's bedroom, of course. Maybe he ran away, but there was no evidence linking that to anything. Like, he didn't take anything with him of importance. There was no sign that anybody else had been in there or there was a struggle or anything like that. Everything was just normal. I also saw some information that one of his brothers, Jeffrey, came forward and alleged that early on in the investigation, an officer actually came up to him and told him that there were high up people involved in his brother's disappearance, and that essentially they should be careful looking into it, and actually advised him to not take it any further because he might get hurt. Which is just so strange. Why on earth would an officer approach the family and say something like that? But again, the police didn't have anything to go on. They searched up all these leads, they interviewed all these people, and again, the door-to-door inquiries, they did so much. But despite their best efforts, to this day, what happened to Martin remains a mystery. Of course, over the years, the case has been looked into and looked over on a few different occasions, but still, we don't know what happened to him. In the 1980s, the investigation into Martin's disappearance was actually closed because they just didn't have the leads. They didn't have anything more to go on, like to continue it. The case was then reopened in 2009 when investigators got some new information that could be vital to the case. They actually interviewed a serial killer called Dennis Nielsen, and I've done a full video on him. If you want to check that out on my channel, it is there. But they thought that because of his crimes and things around the time, that maybe he had something to do with it. However, they basically decided that there wasn't enough evidence to link Dennis to Martin's case whatsoever. Basically, people had reported Dennis because, I don't know, I guess they wanted him to have done something so that they could finally find out, the information, or it was a scapegoat thing, something like that. But, they didn't have enough evidence to tie anything in with him. That same year, police actually went ahead and told Martin's family that all of the original case files in the case had been lost in a flood, so that there was nothing left, which is madness, and it is like sparked all these conspiracy theories of a cover-up and things like that, because they should take care of evidence and things, and they just lost it all in a flood. It was just weird. People thought it was really strange. In 2012, the local police opened up a few different investigations. They were looking into child abuse cases over the last 30 years, and one of them in particular was looking into something called the Elm Guest House. It was thought that Elm Guest House is within, it's not too far from where Martin disappeared. Like, they could easily travel there, like it wasn't a million miles away kind of thing. I mean, the theory is massive, and I'm not going to really go too much into it because it would make this video very long, but And again, it's just a theory. Like I want to concentrate on more the facts and more Martin, rather than going really in depth into the theories, because they are just that, theories. So if you want to look more into it, please do. There's lots of stuff more into that. Again, I'm not really going to go into detail on it, but if you want to look into it, it's quite crazy. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit about it. So yeah, you can look into that theory too. And then later on that same year, police investigators came forward and said that actually they found some of the original case files that they thought was destroyed in a flood, but apparently those ones hadn't been. I don't know. 2016, his case was officially reopened again. And sadly, both of Martin's parents have passed away. I believe his father passed away first in 2012, and his mother passed away shortly after, which of course is utterly heartbreaking. They left this earth not knowing what happened to their little boy, and that is just so sad, because they did, you know, media appearances, they did campaigns, everything to try and keep their sons like in the public eye, and just to try and find out what happened to him, and they just never did, and that is so sad. Many people do believe that Martin was kidnapped that day. Personally, I probably would think that he was kidnapped too. Like, he nipped in for a bit of money and didn't take anything else. All his stuff was still at home. So if you're gonna run away and you go home and pretend that you're going to your brother's, you'd at least take clothes and things like that, but he didn't take anything. I personally believe that he was kidnapped, and whether this Elm House theory is correct or not, who knows? Nobody knows what happened to Martin, and his case still remains unsolved to this day. So yeah, my heart goes out to his family, his brothers. You know, unfortunately his parents never found out what happened to him. Maybe one day his brothers will. It's just so sad. But yeah, that's the end of the case. If you guys have enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to become part of the pack. To all my regulars, I appreciate you. Anyway guys, that's all I have today on the case of Martin Allen. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.